My name is Maxwell Thompson, 37, and I once had what I thought was the perfect life with my wife Rachel and our 3 beautiful children. That illusion shattered last Christmas when my sister-in-law gifted me a shirt labeled, "World's Biggest Loser," before announcing my wife's affair. I walked away silently that night, but what I discovered in the following weeks changed everything. The DNA test confirmed my worst fears. Before I share this heartbreaking journey, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe if you haven't already. Before everything fell apart, I truly believed I had it all. As a senior IT consultant specializing in cybersecurity, I had built a successful career that allowed me to provide more than comfortably for my family. The downside? Frequent business trips that took me away from home for days, sometimes weeks at a time. But I never complained. This was my contribution to our family's well-being. Rachel and I met during our sophomore year of college. She was majoring in communications while I studied computer science. Our first encounter happened in the campus library where she accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop. Instead of being upset, I was immediately captivated by her apologetic smile and those striking hazel eyes. What followed was a whirlwind romance, dating for 6 months, engaged for another 6, and married shortly after graduation. The early years were magical. We were young, in love, and building our future together. 3 years into our marriage, Emma was born. I still remember holding her tiny body in my arms, overwhelmed by a love I never knew existed. 2 years later came Ethan, and 3 years after that, our youngest, Lucas. Our family felt complete. We settled in a spacious colonial home in a quiet Connecticut suburb. 4 bedrooms, a large backyard with a swing set, and friendly neighbors. It was the American dream personified. Rachel decorated every corner with warmth and style, creating the perfect backdrop for our family photos that lined the hallway walls. Despite my travel schedule, I made every effort to be present. Video calls with the kids every night I was away, weekend family outings when I was home, and fully taking over household responsibilities to give Rachel breaks. I prided myself on being both provider and involved father. On weekends, we'd take the kids to the local park, have picnics by the lake, or visit the Children's Museum. During summers, we'd rent a cabin in Maine for 2 weeks of hiking, swimming, and marshmallow roasting around campfires. Rachel's family lived nearby, and we saw them frequently. Her parents, George and Martha, doted on our children and often helped with childcare when I traveled. They treated me like the son they never had, always expressing gratitude for how I cared for their daughter. "You hit the jackpot with Maxwell," I overheard Martha telling Rachel once. If only she knew what was coming. Then there was Vanessa, Rachel's younger sister by 3 years. Unlike the warm relationship I had with her parents, things with Vanessa always felt strained. She remained single throughout our marriage, jumping between relationships that never seemed to last. There was always an undercurrent of competition between the sisters, though Rachel denied it whenever I brought it up. "She's just finding herself," Rachel would say, but the looks Vanessa gave me sometimes felt loaded with something I couldn't identify. Looking back, the red flags were there, waving frantically in my blind spots. Rachel grew increasingly distant about 2 years ago. The passionate kisses goodbye were replaced with quick pecks on the cheek. Our conversations became functional rather than intimate. When I asked if everything was okay, she blamed stress from managing the household alone during my trips. I accepted this explanation, even increased my efforts to ease her burden when home. "She's just going through a phase," I told myself, never wanting to consider alternatives. When Rachel started attending a local book club every Thursday night, I encouraged it. "You deserve time for yourself," I said, oblivious to the fact that the novels on her nightstand remained bookmarked at the same pages week after week. Then Bradley Wilson moved into the house across the street with his German Shepherd. Divorced, no kids, worked in pharmaceutical sales. That's all I knew about him initially. Rachel mentioned him occasionally, noting how helpful he was when our lawnmower broke or when she needed help carrying groceries during my absences. I was grateful someone was looking out for my family when I couldn't. The months before last Christmas were particularly busy for me. A major client in Seattle required extensive on-site work, meaning I was home only 4 days in November. Despite the distance, I focused on making the upcoming holidays special. I ordered custom gifts for everyone months in advance, and arranged to be home for 3 full weeks over Christmas and New Year's. I even planned a surprise family vacation to Hawaii for February, working extra hours to afford the luxury resort Rachel had once mentioned wanting to visit. Throughout 12 years of marriage, I never once suspected infidelity. Not once. I trusted Rachel completely, interpreting her increasing emotional distance as the natural evolution of a maturing relationship. The thought that my children might not be mine never crossed my mind, not even in my darkest moments of insecurity. As Christmas approached, excitement built in our household. The children wrote letters to Santa, we hung lights around the house, and Rachel seemed happier than she had in months. We were set to spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at her parents' house, as was tradition. I remember packing the car with presents, suitcases, and the sweet potato casserole Rachel had prepared, blissfully unaware that in less than 24 hours, my entire world would implode. Christmas Eve arrived with perfect seasonal atmosphere, light snow falling, holiday music playing throughout the house, and the scent of pine and cinnamon in the air. We loaded our SUV and made the 40-minute drive to George and Martha's sprawling Victorian home in Greenwich. The property looked magical, decorated with thousands of white lights and elegant wreaths on every window. As we pulled into the driveway, Emma, Ethan, and Lucas could barely contain their excitement, bouncing in their seats at the sight of their grandparents waving from the porch. Rachel's parents welcomed us with warm hugs, Martha fussing over how much the children had grown since Thanksgiving. "Maxwell, you're looking tired," George noted, patting my shoulder. "Those business trips taking a toll, son? Nothing that some holiday rest won't fix," I replied, carrying gifts into the living room where a 12-foot Christmas tree dominated the space, surrounded by mountains of wrapped presents. Rachel's brother Thomas and his wife Diane had already arrived with their twins. Her Aunt Patricia and Uncle Franklin were there too, along with Martha's sister Catherine and her husband Richard. The house buzzed with conversation and laughter. Only Vanessa was notably absent, having texted that she'd arrive later that evening with special gifts for everyone. The children played with their cousins while adults prepared dinner and caught up on family news. There was something comforting about these traditions, the predictable rhythm of holiday gatherings that I'd grown to love over the years. Vanessa arrived just as we were sitting down for dinner, making a dramatic entrance with shopping bags and announcing loudly, "Sorry I'm late. Had to make sure everyone's presents were absolutely perfect." She air-kissed everyone's cheeks, her gaze lingering on me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. When she hugged Rachel, their embrace lasted longer than usual, and they exchanged a look that sent an unexplainable chill through me. Christmas Eve dinner passed pleasantly enough, though I noticed Rachel checking her phone repeatedly under the table. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled tightly and said she was just checking a recipe for tomorrow's breakfast. I didn't question further. The children were allowed to open one present each before bedtime, new pajamas, as was tradition, then reluctantly went to sleep with promises that Santa would come overnight. The adults stayed up later, drinking eggnog and reminiscing about past holidays. Throughout the evening, I caught Vanessa staring at me with what seemed like amusement, whispering occasionally to Rachel, who would immediately look away when I glanced in their direction. Christmas morning arrived with the thundering footsteps of excited children running downstairs at 6 a.m. Their gasps of delight at the filled stockings and new presents under the tree momentarily pushed away my unease from the previous evening. The gift-opening ritual in Rachel's family was elaborate. Everyone gathered in the living room, taking turns opening presents so each gift could be properly admired. The children went first, tearing through wrapping paper with unbridled joy as new toys, books, and clothes emerged. My heart swelled watching their happiness, completely unaware that this would be our last Christmas together as a family. When it came time for the adults to exchange gifts, Martha distributed packages methodically, starting with George, then moving around the room. I received lovely gifts from Rachel's parents, an expensive watch I had mentioned wanting, and from Thomas and Diane, a set of golf clubs I had been eyeing for months. Wait! Vanessa interrupted just as we were finishing. I have special gifts that need to be opened last. She pulled out several wrapped boxes from a shopping bag, distributing them to each adult with exaggerated ceremony. These are custom-made, she announced proudly. You have to open them all at once. Everyone tore into the packages simultaneously, revealing custom t-shirts. George's read, "World's Best Grandpa." Martha's said, "Queen of the Kitchen, Thomas Scott, Dad Joke Champion." Pleasant, personalized messages for everyone. Then I unfolded mine. In bold black letters across the chest it read, "World's Biggest Loser." The room fell silent. Uncomfortable laughter broke out as everyone assumed it must be some inside joke. I stared at the shirt, confusion giving way to a sickening feeling in my stomach. "Don't you love it, Maxwell?" Vanessa asked, her voice dripping with mock innocence. "I thought it captured your essence perfectly." Before I could respond, she continued, her voice louder now, ensuring everyone could hear. "I feel so sorry for my sister that I have to share my husband with her while you're on work trips. Now she knows what real pleasure is." The room froze. All eyes darted between Vanessa, Rachel, and me. My hands went numb, still clutching the offensive shirt. I looked at Rachel, waiting for her to deny it, to defend me, to be as shocked as everyone else. Instead, she smirked and said, "He's not so useless. He's good at cooking and cleaning." Laughter erupted from Vanessa while everyone else sat in stunned silence. The truth hit me like a physical blow. My ears rang. My vision narrowed. The room seemed to tilt on its axis as 12 years of trust disintegrated in seconds. I studied the faces around me, George and Martha's horrified expressions, Thomas's discomfort, Diane's pity, the children's confusion. And Rachel, my wife, mother of our children, looking not apologetic or embarrassed, but almost relieved, as though a burden had been lifted from her shoulders. The pieces fell into place with devastating clarity: Rachel's emotional distance, the convenient book club meetings, Bradley's helpfulness, Vanessa's smug looks. I had been played for a fool, and apparently, everyone knew it. Every instinct screamed to confront them, to demand answers, to let my rage explode. Instead, I carefully folded the shirt, placed it in its box, and stood up. Without a word, I walked to the coat closet, grabbed my jacket and keys. "Maxwell?" Martha called after me, concern etched on her face. "Where are you going?" "I need some air," I managed to say, my voice surprisingly steady despite the hurricane raging inside me. Rachel didn't move to stop me. She sat frozen, perhaps only now realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. As I opened the front door, I heard George demanding explanations from his daughters. The drive home passed in a blur. My mind raced through years of memories, recontextualizing every moment of our marriage in light of this betrayal. How long had it been going on? Was it only Bradley, or had there been others? And the question that suddenly seized my heart with icy fingers: were the children even mine? I arrived home, walked directly to my home office, and locked the door. Then, alone in the silence of our empty house, I finally allowed the tears to come. Not just tears of sadness, but of rage, humiliation, and loss. My phone began ringing almost immediately. Rachel first, then George, then Martha. I silenced it, needing time to think. But the calls kept coming, followed by a barrage of texts. "Rachel, answer your phone." "Rachel, it wasn't what it sounded like." "Rachel, Vanessa was just being cruel. You know how she is." "Rachel, please come back. The kids are asking for you." As the evening progressed, her messages became increasingly desperate. "Please answer, it was a prank. We need to talk about this. Don't do anything stupid. I'm sorry. Please come home." By midnight, I had 243 missed calls and texts from Rachel, her family, and even Vanessa. I read each message but responded to none. Instead, I made a decision. Before confronting Rachel, I needed to know the full truth. And that meant confirming whether Emma, Ethan, and Lucas, the 3 children I had raised and loved unconditionally, were biologically mine. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a strange limbo. After 24 hours of silence, I finally responded to Rachel's increasingly frantic messages with a simple text. I need time to think. We'll be staying at a hotel. Tell the kids I had a work emergency. The lie hurt, but I wasn't ready to expose them to the adult chaos unfolding. Rachel's response was immediate. Please come home. We can work through this. It was a stupid joke that went too far. But I knew better. The shock on everyone's faces that Christmas morning, Rachel's telling smirk, Vanessa's deliberate cruelty, none of it suggested a joke. What I witnessed was the uncomfortable truth finally breaking through the surface of our carefully constructed family life. I checked into an extended stay hotel near my office and began methodically planning my investigation. First, I needed access to our digital lives without Rachel knowing. As an IT security specialist, I had the advantage of understanding our home network better than she did. I remotely accessed our family cloud storage where Rachel often backed up her tablet, less secure than her phone, which she kept closely guarded. What I found confirmed my worst suspicions. Hidden in a password-protected folder were hundreds of text exchanges between Rachel and Bradley spanning over 3 years. The messages ranged from mundane check-ins to explicit descriptions of their encounters in our home, often in our bed, while I traveled for work. There were references to Vanessa's knowledge and even occasional participation in their deception, taking pleasure in helping them coordinate their meetings. But what truly shattered me was a conversation from when Rachel was pregnant with Lucas. Bradley. Are you sure it's mine? Rachel. Timing works out. Maxwell was in Dallas that entire week. Bradley. What about the others? Rachel. Probably yours too. Does it matter? He'll never know. My hands trembled as I read these words. Emma, Ethan, Lucas, the children I had raised, loved, taught to ride bikes, comforted after nightmares, might not be mine biologically. The possibility had never once crossed my mind until that moment, and now it consumed me entirely. I spent hours researching home DNA paternity tests, eventually ordering 3 separate kits from different companies to ensure accuracy. The next challenge was obtaining samples without raising suspicion. I told Rachel I needed to collect some work documents from the house and timed my visit when I knew she'd be grocery shopping with the kids. Those brief moments in our home felt surreal, like visiting a museum exhibit of my former life. I collected toothbrushes from each child's bathroom, carefully placing them in labeled bags. For my samples, I used cheek swabs from the test kits. Within 48 hours, everything was shipped to the testing labs. The waiting period was excruciating. To distract myself, I dug deeper into Bradley Wilson's background. A LinkedIn search revealed he had worked for the same pharmaceutical company for 15 years, moving frequently for promotions. Facebook showed an earlier life. Posts from 6 years ago referenced a wife and daughter in North Carolina, but they disappeared from his timeline around the time he moved to Connecticut. Further research through public records indicated a divorce, with his ex-wife gaining full custody of their daughter. Was this his pattern? Moving to new places, targeting married women? The thought sickened me. I needed more information from someone who wasn't Rachel. Vanessa, despite her cruelty, might be my best source. I arranged to meet her at a coffee shop, appealing to her apparent enjoyment of the drama. I'm surprised you reached out to me, she said, sliding into the booth with a self-satisfied smile. Come to beg for details? I just want the truth, I replied calmly. How long has it been going on? Vanessa stirred her latte slowly, clearly relishing her position of power. Which time? Bradley isn't the first, you know. Each word hit like a physical blow, but I maintained my composure. Tell me everything. Over the next hour, Vanessa revealed the extent of Rachel's deceptions. The affairs had started during my first extended business trip after Lucas was born. According to Vanessa, Rachel had felt neglected, resentful of my absences, and entitled to find fulfillment elsewhere. Bradley was the longest relationship, but there had been at least 2 others before him. It was the family joke, Vanessa said with cruel frankness. Poor Maxwell, working so hard while Rachel enjoys herself at home. Even Mom and Dad suspected, though they never wanted to believe it. And the children? I asked, dreading the answer. Vanessa shrugged. Rachel always said they were yours, but she and Bradley have joked about the timing. Especially Lucas, he has Bradley's eyes, don't you think? I thanked her for her honesty and left, my mind reeling with this new information. The family joke. The years of deception. The possibility that I had been raising another man's children while everyone silently pitied me. 2 days later, I received the first DNA test results via email. My hands shook as I opened the document. The clinical language did nothing to soften the blow. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. Probability of paternity 0%. This was for Emma, our firstborn, the child whose birth had moved me to tears of joy. The child I had taught to read, whose nightmares I had soothed, whose smile I saw every morning and carried in my heart during every business trip. Not my daughter. Never my daughter. The results for Ethan and Lucas arrived the following day, equally devastating. 0% probability for both. None of the children I had raised for a decade were biologically mine. That night, I sat alone in my hotel room surrounded by printouts of text messages, DNA results, and legal research. I felt hollow, as though something essential had been scooped out of me, leaving only an empty shell. I had built my entire identity around being a husband and father, and now both roles felt like elaborate fictions. But beneath the numbness, something else was forming: resolve. Rachel, Bradley, and Vanessa had conspired for years to deceive me, mock me, and steal precious time I could never recover. The children, innocent in all this, had been used as pawns in their cruel game. I decided then that I would not simply walk away defeated. I would not play the role of victim they had assigned me. If they wanted drama, I would give them a finale they would never forget. After confirming the devastating truth about my children's paternity, I needed legal guidance before proceeding further. I consulted with Leonard Blackwell, a divorce attorney known for handling high-profile infidelity cases. His office, overlooking the Connecticut River, projected exactly the kind of gravitas and discretion I needed. Even though DNA proves they're not biologically yours, you still have parental rights, Leonard explained, reviewing the test results. You've been their father in every way that matters legally. You're named on the birth certificates, you've financially supported them, and you've established a decade-long parental relationship. What about Bradley? I asked. As the biological father, does he have rights? Potentially, if he chooses to pursue them. But it would be an uphill battle for him, especially if he knew the children existed and did nothing until now. This information was crucial to my developing plan. I needed to understand all angles before making my next move. And financially? I've been the primary breadwinner. Leonard outlined the likely scenarios for asset division, child support, and alimony. As a precaution, he advised me to secure my personal financial accounts and document everything related to Rachel's infidelity. Connecticut is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of adultery can influence court decisions regarding alimony. I left his office with a clearer understanding of my legal position and immediately began implementing protective measures. I transferred half of our joint savings to a new private account, leaving Rachel's share untouched but securing mine from potential emptying. I documented all household assets, made copies of important financial records, and changed passwords on my personal accounts. Throughout this period, I maintained minimal contact with Rachel, responding to her increasingly desperate messages with brief texts about needing space. She vacillated between apologetic pleas and angry accusations, claiming I was punishing the children with my absence. The irony wasn't lost on me. At home, I installed discreet security cameras in common areas, legally permitted as I was still a resident of the house, allowing me to monitor Rachel's activities remotely. Through this surveillance, I confirmed her continued communication with Bradley, though their meetings had temporarily ceased following the Christmas revelation. My investigation into Bradley Wilson deepened. Beyond his failed marriage in North Carolina, I uncovered a pattern of workplace complaints from female colleagues at his previous positions, nothing that reached the level of formal action, but enough to suggest a problematic history with women. Financial records showed he had defaulted on child support payments for his daughter until court enforcement began garnishing his wages. This was the man Rachel had chosen over me. This was the biological father of my children. The psychological toll of maintaining normalcy while planning my response was immense. During brief, supervised visits with the children, I struggled to reconcile my love for them with the knowledge they weren't biologically mine. Emma asked why I wasn't staying at home. Ethan wondered if I was mad at them. Lucas simply clung to me during drop-offs, refusing to let go. Each interaction left me emotionally drained but more determined to protect them from the full truth until necessary. As January progressed, my plan crystallized. I would confront Rachel and Bradley simultaneously, with irrefutable evidence, in the presence of Rachel's family who had been unwitting or unwilling witnesses to her deception. But first, I needed to prepare something for Bradley, a package that would force him to confront his responsibility in this situation. I carefully selected items representing each child. Emma's first lost tooth that I had kept in my desk drawer, a drawing Ethan had made of our family with "Best Dad Ever" written across the top, and a recording of Lucas's first words, "Dada," captured on my phone. Along with these treasures, I compiled a comprehensive dossier on each child, medical histories, academic achievements, personality traits, likes and dislikes, fears and dreams, everything a father should know. The final component was a letter, which took me days to write and rewrite. Bradley, you don't know me, but I've been raising your children for the past decade. Their names are Emma, Ethan, and Lucas. Until recently, I believed they were mine. Enclosed you'll find DNA test results confirming you are their biological father, along with items representing each child's lives you've been absent from while carrying on an affair with my wife in the home I provided for them. I've also included detailed information about who they are as people. Emma loves astronomy and can name all the planets and their moons. She's allergic to strawberries. Ethan struggles with reading but excels at mathematics. He's afraid of thunderstorms. Lucas collects blue toy cars and only blue ones. He needs his stuffed elephant to sleep. These are things a father should know. I don't know what role you intend to play in their lives going forward, but understand this: they are innocent in all of this. Whatever anger you feel toward me, whatever satisfaction you derive from your relationship with Rachel, these children deserve better than being collateral damage in an adult betrayal. Maxwell Thompson. With this package prepared, I scheduled the confrontation for January 15th, arranging for Rachel's parents to visit under the pretense of discussing the Christmas incident and my prolonged absence. I confirmed Bradley would be home that day through remote access to Rachel's text messages, planning to have the package delivered to him 30 minutes before our family meeting began. In my final week of preparation, I observed Rachel through the security cameras as she frantically cleaned the house, made phone calls, and practiced what appeared to be speeches in front of the bathroom mirror. She was preparing for my return, unaware of what I actually had planned. The night before the confrontation, I stayed in my hotel room reviewing everything one last time. The evidence was organized in labeled folders, digital and physical. The timing was coordinated. My legal position was secure. All that remained was the execution. I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what was coming: the end of my marriage, the redefinition of my relationship with 3 children I loved deeply, the public revelation of a betrayal that had spanned years. There would be no winners tomorrow, only varying degrees of loss. As I finally drifted to sleep, I thought not of revenge but of truth. After years of living unwittingly in a fabricated reality, I was finally taking control of my narrative. Whatever came next would at least be authentic, and in that authenticity, I hoped to eventually find peace. The morning of January 15th arrived with an appropriate bleakness: gray skies threatening snow, bare trees standing like skeletons against the winter landscape. I dressed carefully in a charcoal suit, the same one I had worn to Lucas's christening. It felt symbolic somehow, marking both a beginning and an end. The package for Bradley had been scheduled for courier delivery at precisely 10:30 a.m. Rachel's parents were expected at our home at 11 a.m. I had arranged to arrive at 11:15, giving everyone time to settle in before my entrance. Every detail had been considered, every timing calculated for maximum impact. Before leaving the hotel, I called each testing lab to verify the authenticity of their results one final time, recording the conversations as additional evidence. I then contacted Leonard to confirm he was on standby should legal intervention become necessary. Finally, I sent a message to Rachel. "I'll be home at 11:15. Please make sure your parents are there. We need to talk." Her response was immediate. "Thank God. We can fix this, Maxwell. I promise." The drive to what had once been my home felt surreal. Streets I had traveled thousands of times now seemed foreign, as though I were navigating someone else's life. I passed Bradley's house and noticed a FedEx truck pulling away, confirmation that my package had been delivered. I circled the block once to give him time to open it, imagining his reaction to the contents. At exactly 11:15, I pulled into our driveway. Rachel's parents' car was already there, as expected. Taking a deep breath, I gathered my briefcase containing all the evidence and walked to the front door. For the first time since purchasing this house, I rang the doorbell instead of using my key. Rachel opened the door, her expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had clearly made an effort with her appearance, hair freshly styled, wearing the blue dress I had given her for our anniversary. "Maxwell," she said, reaching for a hug that I smoothly sidestepped. "Are your parents here?" I asked, my voice neutral. "In the living room. The kids are at school." She tried to take my hand. "Before we join them, can we talk privately? I need to explain about Christmas." "We'll all talk together," I replied, moving past her into the house. George and Martha sat uncomfortably on the sofa, tension evident in their postures. Martha stood when I entered, moving as if to embrace me before sensing my formal demeanor and stopping short. "Maxwell, we've been so worried," she said instead. "Thank you for coming," I responded, placing my briefcase on the coffee table. "Where's Vanessa?" Rachel looked surprised by the question. "I didn't invite her. I thought it would be better with just us and my parents." "I did," I said. "She should be here any minute." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Rachel opened the door to a confused-looking Vanessa. "What's going on?" Vanessa asked, eyeing the formal gathering with suspicion. "Your message said it was urgent. Please sit down." I gestured to an empty chair. "We're waiting for one more person." Rachel's confusion visibly deepened. "Who else is coming?" The final doorbell ring answered her question. When she opened the door, Bradley Wilson stood there, his face ashen, my package clutched in his hand. "What is he doing here?" George demanded, standing up. "Please," I said calmly. "Everyone take a seat. Bradley, thank you for coming." Bradley entered hesitantly, avoiding eye contact with everyone except Rachel, who looked increasingly panicked. "Maxwell, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling. "This," I said, opening my briefcase, "is the truth. Something that's been missing from our marriage for quite some time." I began methodically displaying the evidence I had gathered. Printed text messages between Rachel and Bradley, security camera footage showing him entering our home during my business trips, and finally, the DNA test results for all 3 children. "I had suspicions after Christmas," I explained to the shocked room. "Thanks to Vanessa's gift, what had been hidden for years suddenly became clear. So I investigated, and what I discovered was more devastating than I could have imagined." I turned to George and Martha. "Your daughter has been having affairs throughout our marriage. Bradley here has been the most consistent partner for the past 3 years, though not the only one." Martha gasped, her hand covering her mouth. George's face darkened with anger, though I couldn't tell if it was directed at me, Rachel, or Bradley. "That's not the worst part," I continued, my voice steady despite the emotion threatening to break through. DNA tests confirmed that Bradley is the biological father of Emma, Ethan, and Lucas. Children I have raised, loved, and provided for under the false belief they were mine. The room erupted in chaos. Martha began sobbing. George shouted questions at Rachel. Vanessa sat back with an expression caught between shock and satisfaction. Rachel rushed toward me, grabbing my arm. Maxwell, please, we can talk about this privately. You don't need to do this. I gently removed her hand. I think I've had enough privacy and secrets, Rachel. 10 years of them. Bradley finally spoke, his voice unsteady. I didn't know about the kids. Not for certain. Rachel said they were yours? Yet you joked about the timing. I replied, referencing the text messages. You suspected, but it was easier to let me bear the responsibility while you enjoyed the benefits of my wife and apparently, my children. I turned back to the room. I'm not here to create a scene or seek revenge. I'm here because after a decade of lies, everyone deserves the truth, especially those children who will be coming home from school in a few hours. Rachel collapsed onto the sofa, all pretense abandoned. What do you want? Why did you bring everyone here? To humiliate me? No, Rachel. You and Vanessa already covered the humiliation part at Christmas. I'm here to make my intentions clear to everyone simultaneously so there can be no misunderstanding or manipulation of facts later. I outlined my terms. I would file for divorce immediately. Despite the DNA results, I would seek shared custody of the children. I expected honest, age-appropriate explanations to be given to them with the help of a family therapist. Financial arrangements would follow legal guidelines, but I would not be vindictive. The children are innocent in all this. I emphasized. They will continue to be my priority, even if they don't share my blood. Bradley seemed overwhelmed, clutching the package I had sent him. These test results, they're definitely accurate? Triple verified. I confirmed. Congratulations, you're a father of 3. The question is, what kind of father do you intend to be? The confrontation continued for another hour as questions were answered, accusations flew, and years of deception unraveled. George and Martha's shock gave way to deep disappointment in their daughter. Vanessa's initial satisfaction at the drama faded as she realized her role in damaging 3 children's lives. Bradley alternated between defensive posturing and visible panic at his newfound paternal responsibilities. Throughout it all, I maintained a composed exterior, though inside I was breaking apart and reassembling with each passing minute. When I finally heard the school bus approaching outside, I stood up. The children will be home soon. I suggest we pause this discussion and focus on them. They're going to need stability and honesty, not adult drama. Rachel, now red-eyed and subdued, nodded in agreement. What do we tell them about why you've been gone? The truth, in terms they can understand. That we're having adult problems, that we both love them, and that some changes are coming. The details can wait until we've consulted with a therapist. As the front door burst open and 3 excited voices called out, I steeled myself for the hardest part of this ordeal, looking into the faces of children I loved unconditionally while knowing everything had changed. Emma was the first to spot me, running forward with arms outstretched. Dad! You're back. I caught her in a hug, my heart simultaneously breaking and healing as I held her. I am, sweetheart. Just for a little while today, but I'm here. Ethan approached more cautiously, sensitive as always to the emotional undercurrents in the room. Lucas simply attached himself to my leg, looking up with complete trust. In that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage but embraced by 3 children who knew me only as their father, I made a silent promise, DNA or not, I would remain the consistent, loving parent they deserved. The road ahead would be challenging, painful, and complex, but these children would not bear the cost of adult failures. After spending time with the children, I explained in simple terms that I would be living somewhere else for a while, but would see them very soon. Their questions were difficult but expected. Was I mad at Mommy? Did I not love them anymore? When was I coming home? I answered each with age-appropriate honesty, promising that no matter what happened between their mother and me, my love for them would never change. When it was time to leave, the goodbye was excruciating. I hugged each child tightly, memorizing the feeling of their small arms around my neck, the scent of their hair, the sound of their voices saying, "I love you, Dad." Walking to my car under the watchful eyes of Rachel, her parents, Vanessa, and Bradley felt like crossing a boundary between my old life and whatever came next. As I drove away, the emotions I had carefully controlled throughout the confrontation finally broke through, and I pulled over several blocks away, overwhelmed by grief and loss. That night, alone in my hotel room, Rachel's messages flooded in, alternating between apologies, justifications, threats, and pleas. I documented each one without responding. The foundations had been laid for whatever came next, and now all I could do was move forward one painful step at a time. The weeks following the confrontation unfolded like a surreal dream. News of our situation spread quickly through family circles, then to neighbors, and eventually to the children's school where teachers needed to be informed of the changing family dynamics. Each ripple of information brought fresh humiliation, but also unexpected support. Rachel initially attempted damage control, telling friends and acquaintances that we were separating due to irreconcilable differences. When she realized I had already shared the truth with key people in our lives, her narrative shifted to painting herself as a victim of my emotional unavailability during my frequent business trips. Few believed her, especially after Vanessa, in an apparent attack of conscience, began corroborating my version of events. Bradley's reaction proved most surprising. After the initial shock, he seemed genuinely interested in establishing a relationship with the children. He contacted me directly, bypassing Rachel, to discuss how to proceed. "I never planned on being a father again," he admitted during a tense coffee meeting. "But I can't just pretend I don't know. They already have a father," I replied firmly. "Me. I've been there for every milestone, every nightmare, every triumph. That doesn't change because of DNA. I understand that," he said, looking genuinely uncomfortable. "But they're my blood. I feel responsible." We negotiated a tentative agreement. Bradley would be introduced to the children gradually, first as a family friend, then eventually, when a therapist deemed appropriate, the truth would be shared. He would not interfere with my parental relationship but would establish his own connection at a pace that prioritized the children's emotional well-being. Rachel fought this arrangement bitterly, alternating between wanting Bradley more involved, presumably to reduce her own parental responsibilities, and wanting him excluded entirely, when she realized his interest in the children threatened her control of the situation. Her inconsistency only reinforced my determination to provide stability for Emma, Ethan, and Lucas. Leonard guided me through filing for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences officially while ensuring the court was aware of the infidelity and paternity issues. Connecticut's family court system moved slowly, but temporary custody arrangements gave me the children 3 days each week. Not enough, but a start. Those first overnight visits in my new apartment were both heartbreaking and healing. I had furnished one bedroom with 3 beds, decorated with their favorite colors and characters. Emma brought her astronomy books, Ethan his collection of action figures, Lucas his blue cars and stuffed elephant. They asked difficult questions that I answered as honestly as possible without demonizing their mother. "Are you and Mommy ever getting back together?" Emma asked one night as I tucked her in. "No, sweetheart. Sometimes adults realize they can't be married anymore, even if they both love their children very much." "Is it because Mommy made you sad at Christmas?" Ethan asked, revealing they had overheard more than we realized. "It's complicated, buddy. But what happened at Christmas showed us some problems that can't be fixed. What's important is that none of this is your fault, and both your mom and I love you no matter what." Lucas, too young to fully understand, simply asked, "Do you have to go away again?" "I'll always come back," I promised, holding him close. "Always." Meanwhile, financial negotiations grew contentious. Rachel initially demanded substantial alimony despite her infidelity, arguing she had sacrificed her career to raise our children. When her lawyer realized the strength of my evidence and Bradley's biological connection to the children, her position weakened considerably. We eventually reached a settlement that was fair, if not entirely satisfying to either party. Bradley's involvement complicated matters further. As biological father, he could potentially have sought custody rights, but our private agreement held he would build relationships with the children without disrupting their lives further. He even began contributing financially, easing some of the burden Rachel attempted to place entirely on me. The most difficult moment came approximately 3 months after the initial confrontation. Following the family therapist's recommendation, we gathered the children to explain in age-appropriate terms that Bradley was biologically related to them. We used terms like, helping to create you, for the younger ones, while Emma, at 10, understood more than she let on. But you're still our dad, right? She asked me, her voice small and frightened. I am absolutely your dad, I assured her, fighting back tears. Nothing will ever change that. Being a father is about love and showing up every day, not just biology. The revelation led to a difficult period of adjustment. Ethan went through a phase of anger, refusing to speak to Bradley or Rachel. Lucas became clingy during transitions between homes. Emma grew quieter, watching the adults around her with newfound wariness. The therapist assured us these were normal reactions and would ease with consistent support and time. Throughout this period, I maintained meticulous documentation of all interactions, adhering strictly to court orders and custody arrangements. When Rachel violated agreements, which happened frequently in the early months, I noted each incident without confrontation, building a record that would eventually strengthen my position for increased custody. 6 months after that fateful Christmas, our divorce was finalized. The court awarded joint legal custody with a physical custody arrangement giving me the children 4 days each week, a significant victory reflecting both Rachel's misconduct and my consistent presence in their lives despite the DNA results. That evening, after the children were asleep in their beds in what was now legally my apartment as much as Rachel's house, I sat alone on the balcony looking at the stars. The anger that had fueled me through the investigation and confrontation had gradually transformed into something else, not forgiveness, exactly, but a kind of detachment. Rachel no longer had the power to hurt me because she no longer mattered to me beyond her role as mother to 3 children I loved. My phone buzzed with a text from her. I hope you're satisfied now. I considered various responses before simply writing. I hope you find peace, Rachel. For the kids' sake. Then I silenced the phone, turned my attention back to the night sky, and allowed myself to feel, for the first time in months, a cautious sense of hope for whatever came next. It's been exactly 1 year since that Christmas when my life imploded. Sitting in my new apartment, decorating a modest tree with Emma, Ethan, and Lucas, I'm struck by how much has changed, and how much remains the same. The physical trappings of my life are different now. Gone is the spacious colonial in the suburbs, replaced by a 3-bedroom apartment closer to my office, reducing my travel requirements substantially. My salary now stretches across 2 households instead of 1, meaning fewer luxuries but no real hardships. The children have adapted to their dual living arrangements with remarkable resilience, establishing routines and spaces in both homes. Rachel and I communicate almost exclusively through a co-parenting app that documents all interactions for court purposes. Our conversations remain strictly about the children's needs, medical appointments, school events, activity schedules. The raw emotion of those early months has faded into a business-like cordiality that serves its purpose. Bradley has established his own relationship with the children, seeing them twice monthly for outings and occasional dinners. He never attempted to replace me as their father, instead carving out a unique role somewhere between friend and paternal figure. To my surprise, he has remained reliable in both his financial contributions and his commitment to the children, confounding my initial assessment of his character. Rachel's parents have maintained regular contact with me and the children, refusing to take sides beyond expressing profound disappointment in their daughter's choices. George occasionally joins me at Ethan's baseball games, Martha still sends care packages addressed to all four of us. Their acknowledgement that family bonds transcend the legal dissolution of marriage has been healing for everyone, especially the children. Vanessa, ironically, became an unexpected ally in the aftermath. Her guilt over the Christmas revelation led to a complete account of Rachel's deceptions, providing clarity if not comfort. She now sends birthday cards to the children but maintains distance otherwise, a boundary I appreciate. The greatest changes, however, have been internal. The devastation of betrayal forced me to rebuild not just my life circumstances, but my very identity. Who was I, if not Rachel's husband? What defined me, if not my biological connection to my children? These questions led to painful but necessary growth. Therapy became a lifeline during the darkest periods. My therapist, Dr. Andrea Fleming, guided me through the stages of grief, for yes, I was grieving the death of my marriage, my former understanding of my family, and the future I had envisioned. She helped me recognize that my worth was never tied to Rachel's fidelity or biological paternity, but to my own values and actions. The measure of a father, she told me during one particularly difficult session, is not whose DNA created the child, but who shows up day after day to love, protect, and nurture them. This perspective sustained me through court appearances, awkward school events where Rachel and I both attended, and the inevitable whispers from those who knew our story. It gave me strength when Lucas had nightmares and called for me at Rachel's house, when Ethan failed a math test because he was distracted by family changes, when Emma asked difficult questions about why people who once loved each other could hurt each other so deeply. Gradually, I rebuilt my social connections as well. Friends who had drifted away during my marriage, some intentionally distanced by Rachel, I later learned, re-entered my life. New friendships formed through parenting groups, a hiking club I joined, and surprisingly, through other divorced fathers who shared similar experiences. One such friendship with James, a software engineer whose wife left him for her personal trainer, led to a business partnership. We developed an app to help divorced parents manage shared expenses, documentation, and communication, turning our painful experiences into something constructive that might ease others' journeys. The children have shown remarkable resilience, though not without struggles. Emma, now 11, has become more serious and watchful, processing emotions through journaling and astronomy, finding comfort in the vastness of space that makes human problems seem smaller. Ethan channeled his confusion into sports, excelling at baseball with an intensity that sometimes concerns me. Lucas, at 6, adapts most easily to our new normal, though he still occasionally asks when we'll all live together again. We created new traditions to replace those lost with the divorce. Sunday morning pancake breakfasts in my apartment became sacred time. Monthly museum visits, summer camping trips, game nights, each new ritual helped establish that family continues even when its form changes. About 6 months after the divorce finalized, I met Sophia at a parent-teacher conference for her nephew, who is in Ethan's class. A pediatric nurse with kind eyes and an easy laugh, she approached relationships with the same careful consideration I now valued. Our friendship evolved slowly into cautious dating, with clear boundaries about involvement with the children. When they finally met her 4 months later, their approval meant more than any romantic gesture could. Rachel's reaction to Sophia was predictably difficult, resulting in a temporary increase in co-parenting conflicts that eventually subsided when she began dating again herself. The children's well-being remained our shared priority, a common ground when all others had eroded. The DNA test results that once devastated me now seem like biological footnotes to a more meaningful definition of fatherhood. Emma's straight A's in science, Ethan's pitching improvement, Lucas learning to read. I celebrate these milestones not as achievements of my genetic legacy but as moments I'm privileged to witness and support. Last week, during a routine weekend exchange, Emma hesitated before getting out of my car. "Dad," she said, suddenly serious, "Bradley told me I have his eyes." My heart clenched, prepared for the question I knew would eventually come. "But," she continued, "I think I laugh like you. Mom says I'm stubborn like you too. What do you think?" I asked carefully. She considered this with the thoughtfulness of a child forced to mature too quickly. I think it doesn't matter whose eyes I have. You're the one who taught me to see. In that moment, all the pain of the past year seemed worth enduring for this single moment of clarity. As we decorate this smaller Christmas tree in our newer, humbler home, I reflect on lessons learned through betrayal and recovery. Trust should be given cautiously but withheld only at greater cost to yourself. The family you build through love and presence matters more than the one created by genetics or legal documents. Children absorb not just what you tell them, but how you handle adversity. They're watching how you rise after falling. Forgiveness isn't about excusing others' actions, but freeing yourself from carrying their weight. Your worth is never determined by someone else's capacity to recognize it. The path forward isn't about forgetting the past but building something new that honors the lessons it taught you. As we place the star on top of our tree, the children chattering excitedly about tomorrow's small celebration, I feel a peace I couldn't have imagined during those dark days after Christmas last year. The family I fought to preserve looks different now, but its essence, love, commitment, presence, remains intact. Have you ever experienced betrayal that forced you to redefine your understanding of family? How did you maintain your relationship with children during difficult transitions? Share your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the family we choose and build through love is stronger than the one we're born into or legally bound to. Thank you for listening, and may your own journey, whatever its challenges, lead to peace and renewal.